Hey there, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm with Levy. If you don't already know Al, he's the third generation contractor turned business strategist who wrote the best-selling book, The Seven Power Contractor. He also co-founded the rapidly growing Zoom Drain franchise and created the signature operating manuals and staffing systems that thousands of trades businesses rely on every day. After scaling his family's plumbing and HVAC firm to 70 plus employees and retiring at 48, Al has spent the last 2 decades helping contractors around the world run their companies with less stress and a lot more success. In this episode, we're diving into his famous 7 Power framework so you can transform chaos into calm, free up your time, and boost profits starting right now. Now, with all that being said, Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to people that follow you here. And before you go, what does this guy, plumbing, heating, cooling, have to do with me? The fact is, we are all contractors. I've worked
Mm-hmm.
with condo builders. I never built a condo. I've worked with kitchen cabinetry, garage doors. I've worked with painters and pest control people and all of these different things because all of contracting really is pretty much the same. You can protest all you want. There are subtleties to what you do, but it's pretty much the same. And if you don't have systems, good luck.
It's so funny because we were just talking about this before the show that every single tradesperson, even though I'm mainly pest control specific regarding digital marketing, I've still worked
Yeah.
with a lot of these other industries. Like I said, roofers, pool services, garage door, whatever. And everyone thinks they're so unique, so special. It's completely different across industries. But with digital marketing and also like you do of systems and manuals and such, it's all basically the same stuff. It's like 80 to 90% the same, maybe even more.
You need the same platform.
Hmm.
Exactly like you said, it's like 80%, and then there's a tweak to better fit whatever segment you're in, but it's not a totally, oh, this will never be standardized or never could be done, or you don't know what it's like in my business. And my father trained me and my two older brothers when we were very young to be serial entrepreneurs. We owned a chain of ice cream stores. We owned, you know, liquor stores. We had multi-state real estate, and you know, it was a lot of running around and hustle, but the businesses were basically the same. You have to be
Hmm.
able to do those kinds of things. We always made sure one thing, though. My father's mantra was, you can't kill the golden goose. And all that he meant was that our plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical business was the central part of our business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so talk to me about your background a little bit. So you were the third generation business owner, at least had some equity in the company. What was that like coming into the family business? What was your role? And really, actually, how did that lead up to you starting 7 Power Contractor?
Yeah, so literally born into the business. And my friend have told me that I was born with a silver spoon. And I said, yes, except mine was covered with fuel oil because that was the business we were in. Um, by the time we were all like young, we were either sweeping up, in the office or cleaning out toilets or riding at night and, doing stuff. So ask about when you joined the business. I would say the day we were born and the day they put a wrench in our crib. But we did, obviously drive trucks, do a lot of different things, helpers. My father strongly believed that you should never ask anybody to do anything that you yourself haven't done. And when I was
Mm.
young, I didn't like that. But I saw the wisdom of it pretty quickly because it's true. You don't have no authenticity. And so, yes, that was really kind of it. I did go off to school and college and whatnot. But my college days were, I got my engineering degree, which I never practiced today. But while I was going to school, I was also working 6 months a year in the business. There was no such thing as a spring break in my company.
Yeah.
That's really kind of it. And when I came back home, and I was still young, I was probably in my early 20, and I was the last of the brothers to join. And my father said, "Listen, I owe you an opportunity, not a guarantee, and you're going to start here and work your way up. And by the way, you're not reporting to me; you're reporting to the people that head your department, and they have full reign to do what they feel best. So good
Yeah.
luck." And as it turned out, I was very lucky. I had some really great people, mentors at my own company that really took me under their wing because I wasn't, born a tech. I had to learn a lot of this stuff. Really good, patient people, and I also had some people that were very hard lessons at a day when you could be abusive to your employees. And
Hmm.
so, because that's really what I was. And I had basically what tantamount to a drill sergeant. His name was Tommy. And He was tough. But I will tell you one thing, Danny. I never forgot any lessons that he ever taught me, Tommy.
Mm,
People go, that's great. And you go, well, you didn't listen to why. He said, because it was humiliating enough to do it once. You never wanted to ask twice.
hmm.
So you paid really strong attention to what it is. But I also was lucky I had a lot of great mentors all along the way. Even as I started to change the business, this idea that I'm a self-made man, whoever you are, if you're honest with yourself, and I hope you are, no, you're not. If
Hmm.
you read a book and it influenced you, you're not self-made.
Hmm.
Now, if you took the actions, that helps you become more self-made. But, there is no such thing as a born leader or all self-made entrepreneur.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, I'm consuming content all the time. And like I was talking about Tommy before, and I know he said this as well. He's like, I have hundreds of mentors because
Yeah.
I've read all of these different books and I've talked to all these different people in person. Even really me, every single person I have on the podcast, you're like a mini mentor to me right now. This is like almost like a coaching session. I get to kind of pick your brain and learn from you. So it's not like you achieve everything on your own. I think this might be a fault in the home services space is that I feel like there's a good amount of pride attached and that everyone wants to say they're self-made and they did it on their own and that, like the pest control guys I know, like, oh, I left Orkin, I'm the big man, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it on my own. But like you do have to be humble to an extent and be willing to learn from others, right?
Yes. And you also have to, in my opinion, really just be credit to your mentors. I credit to my mentors, and the list is long. One of them, luckily, was my dad,
Yeah.
and also my uncle. But um, yeah, I've had mentors all along the way. It's that really transformed it. And then I was lucky, when I started to write for trade magazines and things of that nature. I had a really great mentor and great friend that really helped steer me through a lot of things. And he was a specialist in what is hydronic heating, which just means radiators and stuff like that. But really, he was, really helpful at sales and marketing. And you can't necessarily have the objectivity to look at your own business the way you need to. So what do I mean by that? When my brother Richie and I would go out to look at other shops that we didn't compete around the country because we were networked. And it was amazing how we could walk through somebody else's door and immediately know what was really good, what was really bad, what we never want to do. And the reason is we had emotional distance. The hardest thing for us as owners, because like you said, we're wearing blinders as we look at our own
Hmm.
child. And so it's very hard to see the things. And so I really have to get myself in a mindset where I can look at my own business objectively, or you won't see it. So I trained myself as my business began to come out of the dark ages and we came out of the chaos and we really cleaned up our act in terms of what our place looked like, where it was located, how we dressed, how we went to work, all of these things. I knew that it's easy to climb a mountain and then it's very easy to fall down a mountain.
Hmm.
And so I would stop as I was entering my door to my own business and said to myself frequently, pretty much nearly every day, if I just arrived at this place and I wasn't an owner here, what would I see? And as I would walk through the door, I'd see boxes in the hallway that should have been put away, a light bulb that was out, something wasn't right in the bathroom. It's amazing how you can see this if you free yourself. Now, part of what you mentioned before is one of the reasons we ascend to ownership or we left this past company and now we're the hot shot is
Hmm.
because we applied ourselves, we got really good, got to be an expert at it, really practice whatever it is that we do and become the last call, the last
Hmm.
person that they go to in this, if everybody else has dropped the ball. And that gets you into an ego mindset that I'm indispensable, which is a dangerous place to be, or really a place that's going to hem you in as to where you can grow. Because if you're the only guy who can answer the phone the best, or dispatch the best, or be a tech the best, or pay your books the best, then you're already an issue. The goal is not what you know, what can you train others to know? So, quick story: when I spent $150,000 of my family's money creating the manuals originally, and basically they're a fraction of what's in the program today. But in the absence of nothing, they were great. World of difference. We paid that off in 2 years because of the chaos at our company. We were blowing opportunities. We were dropping the ball all the way along the line. We were running back callbacks all the time instead of being able to go to new work, and we were leaving a ton of profit. Plus, we had way more calls because we were good marketers, and we couldn't convert them. So we would go back to old work before we could get to new work, and that was really a big problem. So there's reasons for this. And what I was sharing with Danny before this show, I was really great at sales and marketing, and my team was really great at blowing it up. So that's how I became the operations, the staffing guy, the planning guy, all of these other things. I really had to systematize all of it. So it's planning, operations, staffing, sales, marketing, sales coaching, and financial are those 7 powers that you really need to do. So think of it as the building blocks or foundation under your company. And if you want a strong company, it's good to have a strong foundation. Would you build a beautiful home on top of bad ground or a bad foundation? I hope not.
No.
And so that's really what you really want to think about, whether you choose to scale or don't want to scale, or you want to scale really big. Life gets a whole lot easier when you have repeatable systems that people are trained on so that they can do the work. And your job is to check on them and just praise them as much as they can when they do well and correct when it's not behavior that they should know because it's objective and they've been trained on it.
Absolutely. So it seems like, at least from what I've seen, that entrepreneurs, that they're usually, because, maybe you're a little bit smarter, a little bit more ambitious, you're pretty good at all sides of things. Maybe you're not insanely good at like the finances or the managing or the hiring, but you're pretty good at everything. And at least that's enough to start. But a lot of them struggle with handing off those tasks. Do you have any advice there?
Yeah. So in my book, I talk about, I never made progress. We talk about mentors. One of my great mentors, this fellow, Dan Holohan, was an industry giant, and I was lucky enough to have him in my truck. That was the guy I was talking about, was great in sales marketing, but that really wasn't what he was known for. He was known for being this great heating guru. And so we're driving along, and I go to run a call, and get back in the truck. And this is ancient, guys, so hang with me because the technology has changed. My beeper was going off that was on my waist. My 2-way radio and my big giant cell phone were all ringing at the same time. And he looks over at the passenger seat, he looks at me and he goes, "You think that's normal?" and for a second, I thought to myself, yeah, and I hate it. And then a second later, I thought to myself, Danny, look how important I am. I'm indispensable. And that was when I really first dug into what I talk about, the 3 personalities that I had to get hold of, or nothing was going to change. I liked being the rescuer, like the cavalry coming in. Oh, all these guys failed. You know what? Step aside. I'll show you how it gets done. Whatever position that is. The other one I used to like to be is a fireman. There's a fire out there. I've got to put it out. And all of you have failed. Step aside. I'll get this fire out. Here's the sneaky one on that. If there was no fires, unconsciously, I was setting them up to create fires. Really sneaky stuff. And the last one was, I liked being the guru. So my brother Richie and I would go to the highest level of training because we did residential, commercial, and industrial. I forgot that point. We didn't do just residential. So we would go to this high level training, but none of the other people who were out there, and we had shifts, people on call that were out there, not sitting in their truck or sleeping, from 7 to 4, 8 to 5, 10 to 7 p.m., 2 to 11 p.m. And then in the dead of winter, 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. were shifts that people were rotating through. And they were useless when they would get to these big things. And my brother Richie and I were upset at them. But when we finally stopped being upset at them, we realized that we had the guru system of, we never sent them to that training. We never gave them any aids. We never put them through training to get this thing done. So they were entitled to call and wake myself or my brother up and ask a question. And so ultimately, when we finally systematized that, 50% of our calls, those wake-up calls, went away. So watch out for rescuer, fireman, guru. And I talk about that in my book, 7 Power Contractor. It really makes a world of difference, because if you don't address those 3 things, you're going to hang on to everything, which is what you're asking. Now, once I created an org chart that works with my brothers, and you knew 4 things off the org chart, because I had a New York City union shop. What they wanted to know is, where am I today, even if I don't like it? If you're offering me a career, not a job, which was our mantra, where can I go with you? Then who is really my boss? Because one of the things we hate is we walk around this office, everyone feels free to yell at me. And then the last thing is, if it's not in my manuals and in the associated training, and there's a question, who can I go to ask that question without being yelled at? And that really was the turning point in the arc of our company.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Those three personality types. And honestly, I feel like I can find myself falling into all those three sometimes. It's like, I want to be the person who rescues, like, oh yeah, I see this with all kinds of other entrepreneurs too. So I don't think that's like one person. Oh, it just happens to be Joe in Arizona. Like, no, I think it's every entrepreneur, right?
It is every entrepreneur. Otherwise, we would have never made the entrepreneurial seizure dumb moment and gone into business.
Yeah.
Or even stepped into an existing business because dad wanted to retire or whatever. Yeah. And so you get that way. And your company trains you that way, because every time there's a mishap, who do they send it off to is owners and managers to come fix this, instead of training them to work on items that should be within their sphere.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So I want to jump into the 7 Power framework, but first I want to understand, like, how did you come up with this? Well, why is it 7 powers versus 10 or 5? Like, did you have an epiphany one day, or how did these come about?
Yeah, it was kind of evolution and an epiphany. So it's chicken and the egg. I really can't answer which one went first, but really what I knew was the operating manual was really the biggest turning point. I needed who does what is the reporting order, and that was really starting with the org chart. Because you can create what people loosely use, mix up the terms, they call SOPs. So those are basically, to me, like checklists. And in the absence of nothing, checklists are always better. But if all you write is SOPs and they're all random, it's like Post-it notes all over a wall. There's no structure to it. So SOPs are not operating manuals, which is what I talk about. Operating manuals is when you have an org chart. Now we have a place of discipline. And the question is, which of these boxes is this an activity that goes on 80%? And so what you're creating is a playbook for you, if I brought you on board, that you could be the accounts receivable person, accounts payable person, the CSR, the dispatcher, the service tech, the installer. You follow all of those things. There's a playbook that we go over and over and over again, which empowers you to handle the 80%. Steps of delegation is not delegating what you do all the time. It's delegating special projects or habits that have to get in. And that needs a system too, a written system. Basically, in writing, what is it that you want, objectively stated? Why is it that you want it? What happens if I do it in a good way, my whiffum, or bad? What do I have as resources to accomplish this? What is the time frame? And here's where owners get upset, because they delegate something, a project or habit, because they've heard that they shouldn't be doing everything themselves. So they're going to delegate something to you, Danny. And I need you to clean up the warehouse and get it straightened out in a month. No pictures, no discussion, no mins and max, nothing. Go straighten it out like you're a mind reader. And a month later, I come back out there and it's nothing like what I wanted, if it's even started. So one of the other things in this list of steps of delegation is a weekly meeting, or breaking it up in multiple meetings, so that you're finding out, you're not running through this over and over again. And what happens is, in the first week, so Danny, how are you doing straightening out the warehouse? He goes, oh, I meant to get started, but then I got onto this project and have it. And then I look at him and I go, totally hear it. So now, Danny, you have 3 weeks. Tell me how you're going to catch up, because I'm not taking it back.
Yeah, no,
that's going to help, or some other things. But the point of this learning how to delegate is a very important skill, but you can't delegate everything. You need to help them understand what it takes 80% of the time to fill their box. And then delegations done in writing, steps delegation, this process helps them and helps you. And once the both of you get used to it, everybody seems to love it.
Awesome. And then for trades companies that are just starting out, because that's usually the bulk of companies. I think it's only, I think it's actually
a lot of owner operators.
Yeah, but a lot of them are under $1 million. So who should be the first hires? Like how, because assuming they're fairly small, how can they start to implement this? Because I'm sure they're, they might have started the company recently or they're not seeing too much success. So how can they start to implement these systems and start hiring the right people?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different paths to that. One is that there are other owner operators out there in the same boat as you. And if they're 50, 60, 70, by the way, I'm old, so I'm not age prejudice, but you're reaching the end as an owner operator because your body is just talking to you in ways that you can't believe.
Mm,
The work just wears you out. And so they're ripe to be acquired. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But then they may still want to work and you can scale and grow. But guess what you need is marketing. Marketing is really the key thing. So marketing is organic marketing and acquisition. It's not one or the other. And acquisition, you're thinking you have to have tons of money in the bank. It's not true. These little companies that I'm talking about, they either close the door, but there's nothing there, so that you can work for what we called Ellen named mailbox money, which is when the calls convert, I'll send you a check. And so that's kind of the way that it can be done. There's a spectrum of acquisition. That mixed with local marketing and referral marketing and online marketing. And there's a bunch of different things you can use. But in marketing, it's a system. Marketing is a written system that you have to have a marketing plan, or who, no matter which marketing vendor you work with, is absolutely going to be sabotaged. And you're going to be bothered blaming them. And then the next one you hire will be exactly as disappointing unless you have your house in order. So a marketing plan basically defines where you want to go, what is your goal, all of its objective, then what services you want to do today, what services you might want to add further on, where does you describe your target audience? Because you could say, well, I can sell to everybody, and here's what I can tell you. No, you can't. And what I was told by my marketing guru so many years ago, say something to someone or you risk saying nothing to everyone. And I never forget that phrase. So in my case, I had a couple of target audiences, but the way I looked at it and defined it in this marketing manual was, who is the person that I love the most? And if I had the power to clone, that would be my target audience. And now I put it descriptively so others can see the same thing. Where do they live? What do they respond to? What is, their ticking things? Where do they hang out? Who is their referral marketing source that I could even use? All of that really strengthens it. And the reason why I start with marketing, you're saying, I'm already exhausted, I can't do any more work. I get it. But the question is, are you charging enough for that work? And that's where learning how to do budgeting. And if you don't know what budgeting is, or you're not understanding, you're not great at financial, there are two books that are still great today, and contractors everywhere still read it. It's Ellen Rohr, R-O-H-R. She was my co-consultant. We were co-franchise partners. We worked together a lot. Basically, it really takes financial from this sticky, messy accounting thing that you're looking at and puts it in plain English, because there's a difference between tax accounting and real world accounting. Tax accounting is what your accountant does, and their main job is to keep you out of jail, let you know that where you are, and then also, to be compliant, which is all great, but it does not help you run your business. Real world accounting helps you run your business. And every day, every week, every month, you need to know where you are. And so if it's not in the budget, and one of my great customers said to me, I finally get it about budgeting. I go, what do you get? He said, if it's not in the ingredient in the pie, it's not going to be in the pie when it comes out of the oven. So this is where you put all of your stuff into this budget. And so the book that I'm talking about first, and they're read in order, Where Did the Money Go? And then her second book is How Much Should I Charge? The reason I'm going through that and tying it to financial is this is where you create the money to fuel the gas tank for the marketing. Because your car is not going very far, even if you plug in like I do for electric. If you don't plug in, your electric car is not going anywhere. The point of it is that you need, listen to this carefully. The best way I came to describe marketing, and it is because of my plumbing experiences, imagine yourself trying to fill a bathtub. You're trying to fill the bathtub with the right amount of calls from the right customer at the right time. And if the drain is wide open because you can't answer your phones really well, that's the CSR. But the goal is not to just fill the tub, it's to overflow the tub. Because once you have more demand than you can do, Well, you get to decide what you charge, what work you do, and where you will do it, and what you don't want to do. But it also creates the pressure to move out of this owner operator and start moving to 1 to 3 trucks, 3 to 5 trucks, and anywhere else you want to go.
Amen. I love that analogy, and I'm glad you brought up marketing because this podcast is mainly about marketing. So that's because you're talking, that is like kind of what we need to be looking at initially of implementing marketing strategy. In terms of the 7 aspects of the framework, would you say that overall, like across all the companies that you look at, even like $1 million, multi-million-dollar companies, is it mainly marketing that they struggle with, or like what is everyone missing here?
No, it comes in all flavors. So let me just stress again: planning power, operating power, staffing power, sales coaching, marketing, and finance. Many of these companies have already grown. They got great referrals, customers love them. Depending on where they're operating, it'd be a lot of depending on how much competition they're banging their heads against and what they do. So some of them really don't know what to charge, what I was just talking about. They don't understand the financials. And they think that, well, I'll just bring in an accountant and they'll make it all work. And the answer is not likely. They're just going to make it more complicated. And they're certainly not going to get you the real world budgeting. The other thing is, if you don't know what's going on with the money, and you don't have to do the work, but you need to know that you can trust and verify what your accounting team is giving you, or it's only a matter of time before they take your money from you or become your unwanted partners. And unfortunately, this is a very sad, often repeated story. So that's another reason why those books that I talk about with Ellen are really helpful. You're always going to be in my org chart. You're actually the financial manager. You're also the marketing manager. Because if you don't take hold of the marketing manager box, anybody on the marketing team is sabotaged because you don't have it. So this marketing plan that I was talking about really comes down to the next 3 elements: is marketing budget, which typically is a percentage of sales. And you're not even aggressive until 10% of sales is going to marketing. And then you have to define what is marketing and what's not. So for example, you want to put a beautiful wrap on your truck. Is that a truck expense or a marketing expense? And it really depends on what you call it, but ultimately that stays in that column. And then the next thing is, what are your 3 main drivers, or 3 main ways you go to market? There are only a billion ways to go to market. But if you just spend a little bit of everything all over the place, it's a shotgun approach and nothing's going to get hit. So what are the 3 things that are going to give you the gross sales you desire and the gross profit? And the last one they all missed, Danny, because I missed it as well. You're busy, and all of a sudden the phone goes dead. And there were times I picked up my own phone to go, what, is the phone broken? And really, we were so busy that we forgot that we have to always be doing marketing. So marketing calendar is you populating backwards through the year what activities you must be doing. So for example, if you wanted to do an oversized postcard campaign, well, you have to get a testimonial. And testimonials are very critical to any marketing, even SEO marketing, which we were talking about. If your brand is not great, if you're not responsive, you don't have the Google 5-star reviews, you're not great on all these other things, customer testimonials is what makes all marketing better. I mean, all marketing better. And if you don't think that's true, I travel all over the country. I was in Canada, places like that. And I used to ask the owner, like, where should I eat? And then I stopped. I just go to Yelp and I'll watch enough reviews, get a good sense of it, go to Google, I'll figure it out. And you do the same thing. So guess what your customers are doing? That's why you need to get great customer testimonials to augment.
Love that. So something that I'm collecting here is that it seems like, just overall, kind of just as a general principle, you have to be an avid learner. You have to, especially like across these 7 fields, you have to just learn about finances, find the top people, learn, read their books, watch the podcasts that they're on. Like, you just need some foundational knowledge in each of these fields. Otherwise, it's like you don't know who to hire. Like, how can you hire someone for that role, or how can you make systems around it if you don't know anything about it?
It's true. And I think the thing that I want to be clear is, because you mentioned it before, I work with some great companies like Tommy, but also other great companies. There's nobody that's a 10 out of 10 in all of those. But you cannot be a 0 in any of them. That's really the difference. And then you have to be compared. Now, reading a lot, podcasting a lot. There's tons of information on the internet. And now, of course, to make it a little more interesting, there's AI information, which is both good and both bad. And it's been from day one on the internet. The question is, are you listening and following a genius or an idiot? It's really hard to know. And so that's where there's multiple people attest, again, testimonial to the, oh, I did this and it's great. These are things that point out the better direction. I would say to be careful because it's easy for you to pull a piece from here and a piece from here and a piece from here. And the analogy I use is, Danny, if I gave you the power to create your dream car, would you have a Ford chassis, a Toyota engine, Hyundai seats? Of course not.
No.
But that's what we do when we build our businesses, or we're going to pull pieces from everywhere. You have to have this framework, and then you have to judiciously pick what pieces fit so that we're not making this jalopy rather than a dream car.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's why I like running the podcast and interviewing experts like yourself, is that one of the many benefits I see from it is that I'm pulling consensus across the people that I interview. So it's not just, oh, well, Al Levy said this, so I'm going to do it. That's not like a knock on you, but like I want to, almost like the trust but verify. I want to hear from all the top people. It's like, dang, Al said it, Tommy's saying it, Brigham's saying it. Like everyone says this. Okay, I know it's true. Now maybe if just one person says it, but everyone kind of debates on it, then, maybe be a little bit more hesitant there.
That's true. I think that's a pretty good way to kind of say that everyone tells you that you're not going anywhere without a written marketing plan. And other than me just saying it right here. And if you don't put the elements that I was talking about in it, it's still not going anywhere. And if you don't execute things like, again, the marketing budget, the three main drivers, and then the calendar, I'm sure, there's people out there, they may express it differently, but I know that it is. And you never have to take my word for anything. Number one is I've already done it myself. So it's not like, oh, you know what, this is a good idea. Let's see if Danny will have success with this.
Yeah.
The other thing is I've worked with contractors for 2 decades, and their success stories are all over the page on my website and in my programs and things of that nature. I never ask any contractor to be a guinea pig to something that, is, you want to know, okay, who else has done this besides myself?
Absolutely. Well, relating to success stories, this is a great transition. That arguably your top success story, or at least maybe the most well known, is the Tommy Mello story, that he came to you, or he had you on his podcast and you guys ended up being in the same city. Talk to me about how you originally met Tommy Mello and what that was like implementing your systems and such for his business.
Yeah, so it was 2017 and I was still doing one-to-one consulting, and Tommy just starting his podcast. And I was one of the first guests, and he called me just before we were going to go live. And I looked down at my phone and it's my area code. And I go, so where do you live, Tommy? He goes, Phoenix. He goes, where do you live, Al? I go, Phoenix. He goes, great. When we're done, we'll have lunch together. So we'll have lunch together. We're talking. And then he hands me his book. And he goes, I want you to, do me a favor. Would you read this? Be brutally honest. I go, well, don't give me the book if you don't want brutal honest, because I will tell you. And then I met back up with him and I go, this is not a book. It's a ransom note. It's just so all over the place. He said, you need an editor. So I gave him the same editor who helped me with my book. And then he said, great, you're hired. I said, hired for what? He goes, oh, I need everything that's in your book and what you've talked about at my shop. He said, we're 15 million in sales and we're losing money every day. So my first job in 2017 was to get them to break even. And then from break even to start making a lot of money. And then we're starting to rock and roll. And Tommy comes to me one day and says, says, we're going to be 100 million. And I had already known Tommy, and I go, absolutely no doubt that we will. But this time when we build it, it's not going to be chaos, because you had been relying on people to magically solve the problem versus systems that people learn so that they can scale and get the system to where it is. And today he's probably 230 million in like 19 states. The real test of systems is when you can expand beyond your main hub shop to other locations. So in my case, we had a main hub shop and 3 satellite shops. And the way we learned how to make it run is you need these kinds of systems that people are trained on, not just go find the magic person who makes it work.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So when you are expanding locations and starting to really grow, that's the actual test because I would
That's
assume
the
because I haven't
acid
done it
test.
myself.
That's the acid test to how good you know what it is. Yeah, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, I'm going to be running a workshop on that real soon
Awesome.
because I think so many people are really awful at it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. So talk to me like let's get a little bit more practical here. What what actually changed in his business? Was there like one thing out of place? Was it his finances? Was it everything?
Yeah, you know what? It was all of the things along the seven powers except one. He was already good at sales and he was pretty good
Mm.
at marketing, but it was marketing was just like wake up, fall out of bed, and next hottest thing. If you throw enough money at it, you can get away with it, but you will go broke in the process. So he did planning, operations, staffing. We didn't do sales because he liked the sales system. We did marketing, and then Ellen did the financial and the reward program with him.
And talk to me about like the transition there and like what
Well,
was
the
any
first
of
place
those
I started
key.
with all my one-to-one clients would be planning power. And planning power is really all the projects and habits that every one of your people in your company have in their heads that you have in your head is just like be like and I watch Tommy do it like every other contractor. He's walking down the hallway and he goes, "Oh, hey, Danny, would you take care of this?" So it was I
Yeah.
told him it was not delegation, it was dumping. And I
Mm.
know because that's what I used to do. And I said, "You're not going to like what happens." And he says, "I don't." Well, then we need a plan. So think of it as a funnel. The top 135, 50 projects and habits you want to get done in the next 3 to 5 years, they go there to live. So every new idea, and if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, well, I'm going to get done with this right away, well, where does it fit in the priority? So it comes down the funnel with either fixing your biggest problem or challenge or greatest chance to grow and be profitable. And it gets to the top 30, and that's what you will do in 1 year. And then no one can work on 30 things at one time. So you take the same strainers, fix the biggest problem, challenge, greatest chance of growing profitable, and get down to your top 5. And the top 5 is your promise to yourself and to your company because you put it out there where everyone can see it on a whiteboard. To this day, yes, I know you can digitize it, but that's not the point. It's out there for them to hold you accountable. So on the board, it's what is it that we're doing, those 5 things? Why are we doing that? And then where's the status? And if they see no activity, your team knows same old thing. Because what you do every day is, I really need you to work on this thing. You know what? The next day you walk in and go, I know what I said yesterday, but this is really important. So pretty soon your team learns to stand still because whichever way the wind blows is where you're going next. That is the essence of getting you to work on the right project and habit at the right time in the right way. So that's
Mm.
what got him on the right track first. Then it was the org charts, the manuals, the training that goes into that. And then it was how can he stop trying to find willing techs with great skills because there's only so few of them. And they were really telling him what they would and wouldn't do. And they were messing up and he wouldn't fire them. So I said, yeah, because you don't have your own farm team, which is taking willing apprentice with no skills to willing techs with great skills. So we took the manuals, built the right hands-on training center, which was modeled on the ones that I've created, got them to be better trainers in-house, learning how to train right, training curriculum for it. And that's really the flywheel effect of being able to take apprentices to junior techs to senior techs. And then as you grow and hub out, you need field supervisors, but they're not guys you appoint. They qualify, they compete, and they train. So that's staffing. And then from there, my sales process was 5 steps. They had their own, that was 8. And then there's marketing. And if you're not good at sales, I'm going to tell you right now, your marketing is compromised.
Mm.
Why do I say that? Because if you don't know what makes your ideal target audience tick, how can you sell to 1, 100, or 1,000,000 of them? You can't effectively do that. So the better you are at sales, the better you are at marketing. They kind of reinforce one another. And then marketing, as I was discussing before about a system in writing, really taking the stuff to work this all the way through. That's kind of the necessary things that I was doing. Financial was Ellen getting you to do real world budgeting so that you knew where you were every day, every week, every month, quarter. That's what you did. Sales coaching is basically a fancy name for your reward program. And ultimately, there's 3 ways to pay. straight hourly salary, which is what I was born into with the union, and you got more money the longer you were. And I broke that up to where you got paid the more you could do. Even then, it was dissatisfactory. So we went to the second pay system, which is salary for what you do. And if you bring the jobs in on time, there's money built for going above, or you can sell and do more money above. So that's the nature of that second one. And the third one, which is popular now, pay for performance, where people think, well, I don't pay you if you don't perform. And the answer is no. The government wants its money, and it's very different everywhere you operate and how you operate. So don't go it alone here. And if you're going to go down the pay for performance, you really need a good HR person to know what it takes to be compliant. And here's the bad problem. It sounds bad. The government may not catch up to what you've been doing for 2 to 3 years. And once they do, the penalties are going to rack up like you can't believe. So you want to make sure you're always staying in compliance.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Okay. So you basically changed around everything in Tommy's company. It sounds like, besides the sales. And that's crazy because a lot of people in the space look up to Tommy and they think he's like a genius, and not saying that he isn't, but just, no, he's very smart.
He's a genius and an incredibly hard worker. But he's also, he was really unfocused. That was really big. And I'm not saying anything that he hasn't said publicly over and over again. I really had to get him to sit down, put his phone down, and I threatened to walk out on him. Literally. I told him, put your phone away. It was a bucket that we were all doing. And finally, I just got up and said, I'm leaving. He goes, where are you going? I said, I told you to put your phone away twice. My time is valuable. If you're not going to spend time with me focused on this, I'm leaving. And to his credit, he put his phone away and we got down to work.
Dang. No, I was not trying to badmouth him or anything. I was just saying that, like, everyone looks up to him, and even there were so many problems with his business. So I'm sure with other people's, it might even be worse.
What made him great, Danny, though. It's not that his business from day one was perfect and nothing ever has to be changed. He knew it was broken, but he wasn't going to stay broken.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I guess for those bigger companies, so actually, because I'm just trying to think about this from like a full perspective, because we talked about the smaller guys, but it's the same issue with the bigger guys. They don't have anything on lock either.
Yeah, I've worked with one of the smallest companies typically was when I was doing one-to-one consulting. It was a chimney guy up in California. And when I say small, he and I were working at his dining room table. His wife was playing with the grandchildren next room over, and she was the accounts payable bookkeeper. His best friend was in the garage being the CSR and dispatcher, and he had one tech, his son. We scaled that business to be 12 techs, 2 locations, and he sold it.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's the same systems that there's a condo builder, 85 million works, same idea.
Mm-hmm. I love what you were talking about earlier of relating it back to an exit. And really, it seems like over the course of what you've been saying and what I've listened to you off of this podcast is that you have to be a very long-term thinker. When you are hiring people, you are creating careers. You want them to be with your company forever. When you are building your company, it's not just, okay, how can we survive the next month, but how can we hit that crazy exit, or how can we pass it throughout the family? So you need to be a much longer-term thinker. And I want to go a little bit deeper on that, exiting and such with your company. What have you seen in terms of that you get like a higher multiple, or there's just less stress, or it's more attractive to investors?
There's no shortage, depending on where you're hanging out. You're going to hear about all these phenomenal numbers from PE companies. They're not interested in owner-operator, 1 to 3 truck, 3 to 5 trucks. Frankly, you're probably not on anybody's radar until you scale to about 5 million, if you're talking that way. But there are other companies out there that might be interested. As I mentioned, you could be the acquirer, but sometimes you can choose to exit. And sometimes you can do employee buyouts, like Ellen did with her plumbing and heating company. The employees bought the company from. There's a lot of different ways to go, but nobody wants your job. They want to buy a company. They don't want your job. So you have to, make it run without you being the thing that makes it all work.
And you are running the business doesn't run you, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I remember hearing you say that on a podcast. It's so true. And also the thing of
And don't be deceived by scale, because we were 17 million already, and you think because you're big, no, that business was just more gasoline to a fire. It was a
Yeah,
bigger
that's what I was getting kind of confused by, because I do talk to a lot of these small business owners. A lot of times it's pest control guys, and I just know they're like all over the place. They're managing everything. It's fires all day long. But I would
Yeah.
think that the companies 1 to 10, even like 20, 30, that they've kind of got it dialed, but no.
All that they have is the ability to throw more bodies in front of an oncoming bus that will never stop.
Oh God.
Sorry for being morbid, but really that's the best example, because that's what I felt like. We were just taking people off the street, just throwing them in front of the bus to slow it down, not stop it. And we never got to stopping it until we created this, you know, foundational pieces, got people trained up, and then we could really turn on building our own staff from scratch instead of always trying to rewire people.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
exhausting.
So I'd like to get actionable here. Like, after someone listens to this podcast, what do they need to do? They need to read your book. They need to read Ellen Rohr's book. Like, what can they implement in their
Yeah, I would
business?
say, yeah, my book, it's a very short read. When I worked with my editor, I had already been writing for years and years. And she goes, well, why do you need me? I go, I have 250 children in the audience, and they're all telling me to pick me. I said, that would be a mess. But more than that, I only want to have a book that a contractor like myself, because I'm not a fast reader, could read in 2 to 4 hours. But the goal would they would read it over and over again and absorb more and more as they go. So that's how it's designed. And that is The Seven Power Contractor, which is on Amazon, paperback, pretty easy read, ebook. And if you like this voice, it's on Audible. Yeah, there's no excuse not to do that. Ellen's books, if you want to, and I recommend, before you go out and get somebody on your financial team, or you have people on your financial team, go read those 2 books and read it in the order. Where did the money go? And how much should I charge? And remember, it's ROHR. It's a
Awesome.
wrestle.
And then
Those
any
are
other books, any
seminal
other
books.
resources?
Oh, there's a ton of them. Look, I still think Good to Great is a great book. One of the shortest books that always goes, people don't get, Who Moved My Cheese, was one of the things about change, because all of us struggle with change. Your employees struggle with change. You struggle with change. And I still keep it above my desk. I have a thing. It's like Asian, for those of you could see, it's still here, because it reminds me how much am I adapting and changing and flowing with the change that goes on. So without confusing you with an incredibly long reading list, these short, well-written books are really a good foundational piece, so that you're not just, oh, I'm going to read and read and read and read and read and read. Okay, well, knock yourself out. But then what you will have done is give yourself another 8 billion ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And to close off this show, Al, by the way, great recommendations. I'll make sure to read those books. To close out the show, I'd like to give you the stage. What is your definitive message to these local business owners that, they might be starting out or they might be trying to grow? What is your message to these business owners?
You can grow big. There's ways to do that. But really, the idea of just growing big without being systematic is an invitation to chaos. It's basically going to end up like all the others, which is an uncontrollable fire that you keep putting gasoline on each and every day. So when people ask me, when is it time to put systems in place? The answer is what I was told years ago by my friend Ellen, which is, she asked me one day, she says to me, when's the best time to grow an oak tree? And I go, I'm from New York City, so we don't know from oak trees. So why don't you just tell me, Ellen? And she goes, 10 years ago and today. Because if you don't plant it today, 10 years from now, you're going to wish you had. So that's really my answer to that. And then once you have a structure, then you can start judiciously adding pieces to help yourself grow.
Amen. So start implementing those systems today. Go get Al's book. Go get Ellen's books. Go start learning. Get that foundational knowledge so that you can apply all of these different 7 powers. Al, this has been an absolutely great podcast. And I love the way that you think about things. I feel like very few people are thinking so systematically, and it shows, because all of these home services are all these home service companies are majorly struggling with the systems. And I see it myself. I'm more so on the marketing front, but still they're
Marketing is
marketing.
a system. Just like you heard me rattle off before. Don't delude yourself.
It's a complete mess. Every single company that I walk into, even the ones I've done some consulting with $100 million companies, and they still don't have it dialed.
No.
So this is really a big opportunity for all these businesses, and it was an honor to talk to you, Al. So to close us off, where can people learn more about you, find you on social media and
The best
such?
place to go, Danny, is to my website, which is the number 7powercontractor.com. Number 7powercontractor.com. There's a lot of information. I've been writing blogs wherever. You can search a lot of it. You'll get some really good information. There's videos, there's things of that nature. It's all free. Jumpstart Guide is free. And if you're interested in products beyond the book, then click on the product page. You'll see the two main programs. Signature Operating Manual System is where you start. And then that leads you into the second program, if you're interested, is Signature Staffing System, so that you too can take willing apprentices with no skills to willing techs with great skills.
Awesome. So definitely go there, 7powercontractor.com. That will be in the description below. And then where can people connect with you on social media and anything else you'd like to plug out?
Yeah. So if you want to reach out directly to me on my page, there is Connect with Us. You can do that. And so that's a really good place. I am out there on social media because everybody wants to listen to an old guy go on and on. But no, trust me. I'm not putting pictures of my dogs and my kids or anything else of that nature. It's all about what I've learned along the way. That's what I share on my social media platform. So either as Al Levy or 7 Power Contractor. I'm primarily in Facebook, not a lot on Instagram. And so those are really the big places to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your information throughout the industry and particularly on this podcast today. It was such an honor to have you, Al. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Of course.